Time for Western Perspective. We are breaking the usual presentation format this week to bring you a feature interview with newly elected Greens Upper House member Brad Pettitt, the former mayor of Fremantle, breaking into state politics.
Interestingly, Dr. Pettitt becomes the sole survivor among Greens members in WA state politics, following Mark McGowan's landslide win. So what does the next 4 years have in store for Brad, and how will he hold the government accountable?
It's going to be much more difficult. In fact, I guess when I put my hand up for this, I was hoping to be sharing the chamber with a range of Greens, certainly not being by myself. And people like Alison's mom were the ones who convinced me to put my hand up, and I am disappointed that I won't be there with them. But that said, I am pleased that there will still be a Greens presence in the Legislative Council, and looking forward to taking up that role in late May.
Will the headline "one-man ban" be accurate?
Yeah. No, look, I think one of the things we're going to see in this parliament is with Labor controlling both houses of parliament so strongly, it's going to require collaboration across party lines and also within the party itself. No one person can do this by themselves, so I'll be making sure that I'm collaborating where I can, and because look, we do need to hold the government to account. We do need to work with them collaboratively as well to make them better. So, and that's going to be the challenge that we've got.
Will you work with the Liberals, the Nationals, and also the Canvas people as well?
Yeah, that's right. We must have to do those things. The reality is there's not a lot of people on the opposition benches. There's not a lot of Liberals or Nationals, and there are a couple of minor parties with both Cannabis and Daylight Savings. But and being the only Green, my role will be to work with them and make sure that we are on those committees, asking the right questions, and hopefully making this government the best government that they can be.
Do you believe the system needs an overhaul?
The upper house voting system clearly needs an overhaul. It is. Look, I think it's not an exaggeration to say it's broken because getting into the parliament shouldn't feel like it's a lottery. It should feel like that the voters' intent is clear and transparent, and that's not happening anymore. With preference whispering, with the weird nature of how preference flows, it's not transparent anymore. It needs to be improved.
It's really about maths, isn't it?
Yes,
if you know the maths,
yeah.
Look, you can get 10 votes and you can get in. If
yeah.
you don't know the maths, you can get 50,000 votes and you don't get it.
Yeah, and that's not the way it should be. It should be actually much more where the voters have their say. I think there's a real opportunity to transform how voting happens in the upper house in a way that the voters get a stronger say, and it's not left to the preference whisperers and the micro parties' preferences to flow through. That's not the way democracy should work.
But if the system is overhauled to a certain extent, minor parties will be also the one that's disadvantaged, isn't it? It's a double-edged sword. Yeah, look, in some ways, but for example, there are 36 seats in the upper house. A proper proportional system would mean that you only need about 3% to get a seat if it's going to represent, and that's not a high bar. But at the moment, we're seeing some parties with far less than 1% getting a seat, whilst some, for the Greens, for example, got well above 6% in some seats and didn't get a spot. And that, for me, is actually, I think, an example of a system not working as it should be. What's your assurance to young voters? What is your first priority for young voters?
One of the things that I heard during the campaign are probably two key issues. One was around climate change and action on climate change, and the other one was around housing and homelessness and stronger action on that. We need both of those things. I think need to be strong priorities going forward. I think we've got a government that has an amazing mandate to actually take some of those hard decisions and actually get really active in these things, and I'll be encouraging them to do that and actually working with them the best I can to get them to do that.
And now, here is Australian Medical Association WA President Dr. Andrew Miller and his weekly COVID-19 update and commentary.
Hi, thanks for your time. All the talk this week has been about vaccine and the change by the government, the pivot now from AstraZeneca vaccine for most of the population to Pfizer vaccine for those under the age of 50. So where does this leave us? Well, for those under 50, you'll be getting an mRNA vaccine, which has very high efficacy and an extremely good safety record. It's the main one being relied upon in North America, and it has done most of the work so far in the UK as well, and a lot of Europe. So that's the vaccine that's a bit more difficult to distribute, although the Americans are now saying they can keep it in a normal deep freeze for quite a while after it comes out of these super cold conditions, and it works just fine. For those over 50, you now have the option of going ahead with AstraZeneca or waiting if you want to. We've secured enough Pfizer vaccine orders now to do the entire adult population. And of course, we have no COVID in the community, so there's nothing urgent right now. But we don't know when that might change, particularly if there's some change to border policy settings over the next little while. So it's a matter of whether you want to wait and see, or whether you would rather have the security of going ahead and having a vaccine. The complication rate that they're talking about is about 1 in 250,000 people develop this rare clotting disorder, which is not the same as DVT. It's something that is more akin to an allergic reaction where the platelets suddenly start to misbehave. And so depending on which of these things you're more worried about and what your analysis is of whether you think you're likely to be exposed to COVID in the next few months, then it's up to each individual to make their decision as to how they want to proceed now. But we're pleased that the Australian Task Force on Immunisation has made this call because it shows the system's working. They're monitoring the safety profile and they're making the right choices and recommendations so the population can get protection from COVID, which is going to be incredibly important, and remain safe. We're going to need more vaccines as time goes by because of variations in the virus itself. And we're seeing the Brazilian variant is now infecting areas that had COVID before. People have had COVID before are now getting it again, just as bad, the second time, sometimes worse, because their immunity is not dealing with the change in the virus. And so we will need to be updating as time goes by in order to remain ahead of the curve. It's something we're just going to have to get used to. In other news, we know that there's been a lot of pressure on the emergency departments in Western Australia now for some time, and unfortunately leading to long waits for a lot of people, including, very sadly, Aishwarya. And her death is a tragedy, and we just hope, as her parents have stated, that this will lead to some action to prevent people having to wait for access to emergency care. And we'll be meeting with the government and the Australian Nurses Federation, hopefully sometime in the next week, to progress practical solutions to these problems and to get some clarity around this crisis and how it is that we're going to be able to fix it, because the people of Western Australia certainly expect to be able to access emergency care as soon as they need it. Thanks for your time today.
And now here's Leo with what's coming up on 6 News.
Tonight on 6 News, breaking news, major escalations across Myanmar, Chinese troops seen at the country's border as shocking footage emerges of security forces kicking 10 blindfolded and tied up men in the middle of the street. Plus the government's vaccine rollout again under fire after major breakdowns in the supply chain were revealed, as a senior official at the European Medicines Agency confirms there is a link between the AstraZeneca jab and rare cases of blood clots. And the fallout from Georgia's new voting law continues, companies boycotting the state and people boycotting those companies. We'll fact check how it really affects Georgians as the former president weighs in. You can see full details on those stories and plenty more by heading to our YouTube channel. Just search 6 News Australia to find us, and don't forget to subscribe. For now though guys, it's back to you.
Thanks, Leo. And that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest news on our website, wamnews.com.au.
Sarah will be back with us next week. Until then, from Kit and myself, wish you good health, good night, see you next Sunday.
Thanks for watching.